We're talking about constructive alignment. Do you remember what it is? If you don't, then this video is really for you. And if you do, but you haven't taken the Develop course for a while and you're a little bit hazy on the details, then certainly follow along. We hope you find it interesting. Let's look at the basics of assessment, and that starts first with what we are testing and how. To define what you're assessing, we need to go back to our learning objectives and our old friend, constructive alignment. Constructive alignment starts with your learning objectives. Why are they important? Well, because they're your contract with your students. But for you, the learning objectives are a summary of your course's teaching goals. What do you want your students to know by the end of your course? Good learning objectives are concrete and measurable. And after establishing those, you need to align them with your assessment activities, or the ways you test how the individual students have achieved the learning objectives, and with the learning activities, or the resources that are used. This is an effective collection of videos, lectures, and readings that help the students to achieve the learning objectives. For instance, if my learning objective is that students should be able to apply the concept of constructive alignment to their own teaching, it should be linked to an assessment task, like the submission of an assignment that shows how the student is applying constructive alignment to their teaching, and a resource on what constructive alignment is, how to create good learning objectives, and aligned assessment tasks. If my goal was to ask you to apply the concept of constructive alignment, but I only gave you a multiple choice exam in which you had to memorize the parts of Bloom's taxonomy as shown here, then I would have ultimately failed in my task. The level at which your learning objectives are stated, and therefore your content and assessments are developed, will influence the level of learning that your students will reach, if they are properly aligned. For example, if the students only need to remember a few facts, then they'll most likely only engage with the content at a surface level. However, if you expect them to make judgments based on a set of guidelines, or evaluate, they'll engage with the content at a much deeper and richer level, and gain a much deeper understanding of what you're trying to teach. Bloom's taxonomy is not without critique, but that is a subject for another time. Before we move on to our first activity, there's one more key point of aligned learning, and that is the balance between feedback and grading, or giving your students the opportunities to make mistakes, learn from them, and adapt. Formative assessments are low-stakes tasks that give students the opportunities to practice and improve, but critically, how fast they improve depends on the quality of the feedback that you give them. So good teaching builds in time for both assessment tasks and feedback that is timely and specific. Now let's give you something to practice with. You've inherited a short course on how to build wells. The learning objective, which we're asking you not to change in this case, is to build a prototype of a well and surface facilities using the material and design provided. In the following table, column 1 gives an overview of the type of learning activities, while the second column contains a summary of the constructive alignment of the course. Read through the learning objective and complete the table by improving the constructive alignment. We want you to post your responses in the course forum below this video, so you can pause the video and take a look at this particular slide in a lot more detail. I look forward to seeing what your answers are.